Well, what a strange innings from the Lucknow Super Giants. There are many ways to get to 176, but after losing KL Rahul without facing a ball, yet getting 66 of their power play, being 102 after 11, then in the last 9 overs, 8 of those 9 overs have gone for 46, with none of them being double-digit overs, but one went for 30. And then the sum total of all that is 176 for 7. We will look back at that innings with Daniel Vettori and Ian Bishop on Maruti Suzuki Presents ESPN Cricinfo T20 Timeout, powered by IQ 9 5G. 176 is, if you just look at 176 without watching the innings, you watch the innings, of course. I'm just trying to think of what you'd make of that score.
If I didn't watch it?
No.
Fascinating innings. I mean, right from the start with KL Rahul being run out without facing a ball, to Cock and Huda looking like they were on their way to 200, 210. I think they brought up the 100th and 10th or 11th over. So they showed how good the surface was, and I think that's where our expectations around this ground at Pune is, that it is a good surface. There are a lot of runs there, but then Krunal Pandya and Badoni just got stuck. And Krunal Pandya was trying. He was trying to be aggressive. He just wasn't good enough against Narayan. And then Badoni it was weird. Those two scores on the scorecard are the anomalies, and those are the two reasons why they stopped short of being around that 200, 210 mark.
Yeah, I mean, 40 of 45 Bish between Krunal and Badoni. Now, has that 30-run penultimate over with Stoinis and Jason Holder saved them somehow, or is that innings still one that they'd feel like they've fallen short?
Yeah, I'm sure they'll feel, given where they were at the half, I'm sure they'll feel that they've fallen short. So Stoinis and Jason has resuscitated the innings and given them something that they can work with. Just watching Sunil Narayan bowl and getting some deliveries to grip in the surface offers some hope. Dre Ross, with his strong shouldered bowling action, when he hit the ball into the pitch, made it hard to score. So some overs from those two crucial guys were probably contributing factors as well in the back half there. But 170 odd is nothing to smirk at when you have to chase, especially up there.
Yeah, is this challenging a surface? Because some of the guys, Huda and de Kock look like absolutely smashing it. I think David Hussey said in an interview that it looks like a road and it's going to be a high-scoring game. But was it not as easy?
I thought it was a good surface. I mean, that's what we've seen in this ground for the last few games, the high scoring, that even 200 is close to being chaseable. But like we always talk about, a score around 180 is still tricky. There's still the ability for a team to slip up. But I feel like it is a decent surface. But Narayan bowled exceptionally well. I thought, once again, whenever we talk about spinners bowling well, it's around their lengths. And Narayan was superb. He just kept hitting his length, kept deceiving batsmen with which way he's going to spin it, particularly to Krunal Pandya. But his lengths are almost unplayable tonight.
Is this version of Narayan, the new version, one that's now comfortable with this remodeled action, Bish? Is this the most consistent season he's had as a bowler, you think?
Yeah, he's gotten better. It worried him for a long time. He was so insecure in the remodeling, then having to go back after being reported and then come back again. And he's put in a lot of work with Carl Crowe on that action. And I think last CPL, emanating out of that was him stating privately that he's starting to feel a lot better. And what we're seeing now, that's why Marcus Stoinis, and Daniel is right, the length. That's why Stoinis came out and looked to play the paddle sweep, because you can't get to him because there's a bit of pace coming back. And when that pace is there, the control of length is superb with the each way movement.
Yeah, excellent from Sunil Narayan. But it seems like a recurring theme from the afternoon game on decisions that teams make as to who to send when in a situation, especially batting first. Now, they took the call to send Krunal at 4. Perhaps that did not surprise us. Then in the 13th over, when Deepak Huda was dismissed, they sent in Badoni, reserving Stoinis and eventually even Jason Holder. Would you have gone differently?
Absolutely. I think Stoinis and Holder need to be in the game. I think they can bat in that number 4 position or 5, either of them, because they're such quality players, and we know we're not allowed to use the word closer or finisher anymore. So
of course you.
Oh, we are.
Bish, are we? Yeah.
We get, it's been banned from our lexicon. But I think they are good enough to go up there, and and Cricinfo Pan is good enough to close innings as well. So it feels strange when you see those quality international players not be given a chance. And you could see the frustration, I think, on Stoinis on the sideline. He was almost pacing around, hoping to get out there as soon as he could.
I mean, and he is also one of those that Bish, you'd observe that likes to face a few balls, as we did see when he came in. He didn't want to go in the 18th over. He took off in the 19th. Now, between Stoinis and Holder, you've given them 18 balls. When you've got that sort of start, how tempted are you to just, change things up, send the big boys up front, and then if something happens, then let the Indians, try and fix it?
Yeah, and we have to start getting information as to why these changes do or don't take place. Because when Rockman Powell mentioned a key word the other night when he spoke, he said trust. He asked Rishabh Pant to trust him. And I think guys like Stoinis in particular, perhaps more than Jason Holder, right? Because Stoinis is a guy who has opened the batting actually in this format of the game at franchise level. Why can't you trust him to get in there, absorb a little bit of pressure, set himself, and then take off? We have to try to somehow, before this tournament is over, get an understanding of why those things are taking place, because it befuddles all of us.
Let's try and speculate. Let's try and come up with a theory. Is it that it is likelier that these two will be able to have that sort of impact, get 30 off an over, and therefore still get you to 175? But if they come in early and they get out cheaply, then guys like Badoni and Krunal go in knowing that there's no one left behind. There's potentially the tail. You don't have the confidence of knowing that I still have Stoinis, I still have Holder. Does that make any sense? Is it a good enough reason?
I think that's exactly the reason. I think teams hold out hope for these 30-run overs, or more likely the 18, 20-run overs, and then they want prototypical finishing batsmen who can do that. And they see Stoinis as that, they see Holder as that, and they potentially don't see Badoni or Krunal Pandya in that role. So they think, well, they can play through the middle stages, and then we can finish at the end with these guys who can produce these massive overs. And we see it with Pollard. We saw it today with Livingston drop down, so that these things can happen. So it looks good, you get momentum at the back end, but I still believe that those players can still be there at the back end after putting together a great partnership where they will be more aggressive. They could have put pressure on bowlers earlier, and therefore you get it closer to that 200-run total. So it's an element of trust. It's an element of giving players confidence they can do that, and also franchises taking a little bit of risk. We may miss out. Stoinis may get out first ball. Jason Holder may get out first ball, and that's the risk we're prepared to take.
So you talk about sometimes looking at two players in partnership when we critique one for strike rate and not the other. Can you start looking at the middle order differently these days? Would franchises look at that and say, if Badoni and Pandey have got 40 or 45, that's okay, because Stoinis and Holder have got 41 of 18. So collectively, my 3 to 6 has done the job I want.
I don't like that.
No, not buying it.
I want to look at the individuals. Look, Aidan Markram and Nicholas Pooran are the best examples, I think. They come in the middle stages when the pressure's on, and they're prepared to take the game to the opposition. And Sunrisers are prepared for them to get out, and maybe it all falls apart. But more often than not, if you give those players the confidence to go out there and play that game, they're going to reward that. And I think middle order players who have the ability to be aggressive and take the game on are a dime a dozen, and they're so worth protecting and nurturing and making sure that they have 8 to 10 opportunities throughout a 14-game season, rather than just hold them back and hope for a middling score.
Okay, Bish, anything to add to this chat before I pile on poor Shivam Mavi?
No. Look, I just want to rephrase what Daniel said there. If they get out, why is it that we're thinking in this format? If they get out, those guys are good enough to soak it up. I just like to see guys maximize that a bit more.
All right, fair enough. Now let's talk about Shivam Mavi. Bish, that 19th over could very well be decisive. Now, it's not just that over. We know now through recent memory in the IPL that Mavi tends to go. He has had a couple of good games, but when he goes, he tends to have this sort of 25, 30 run over. What did you make of that over? Where could he have possibly helped his cause more?
Well, just listening intently to the guys, it's hard to grasp the dimensions of the ground, right? And it's something that I personally am big on. If there's a particular dimension of the ground that provides you with an advantage, you've got to use it. Now, it may not be within your skill set to bowl certain angles. Some bowlers are not comfortable. But if it is such an advantage to utilize it, if he had to go around the wicket and bowl wide, I'd prefer to see him show that sort of versatility. Because he's a kid I like. I love Mavi. I love the fact that he's showing improvement, but then he slipped back into maybe wrong decision making in that last over.
Just one more thing, Ubesh, as a fast bowler, you need to keep preparing bowling around the wicket and wide to the right-hander. Is it something that can happen instinctively halfway through an over?
Well, I mean, different bowlers are different. From my own experience, you practice those things and versatility even more so now. Alzari Joseph is one that we have talked about in the past, didn't like bowling round the wicket, but he's had to learn to do it. So I understand you can't teach maybe an in-swing bowler to bowl outswing immediately, but certain things like angles, round the wicket, over the wicket, are things that you can control and practice. So that has to be a part of your part. And there's so many guys on the field, Russell and all of those guys on the field experience who maybe could have offered that advice. I don't know if they did.
Prasidh Krishna has perhaps shown the best example of doing it, but can everyone not do it? It's not as easy.
I think it definitely takes some practice because all of a sudden you have to adjust your length in terms of you're actually bowling a longer ball than you would around the wicket. So you're actually putting half a yard on it to get it out to that wide line. So it does take a little bit of getting used to. It was interesting to see him bowl that over and then Southee bowl length the other end. And I know that's the dimensions of the ground and whether the experience of Southee could have bowled the penultimate over, gone to the Yorker and then maybe given Mavi a little bit more room to breathe with that bigger boundary.
For someone like Mavi who knows he tends to go, I'm sure there are batters who also know that, right, if I've got him for 1 or 2, I could even get 3 or 4 more. I mean, is that sort of baggage something you've observed or noticed with bowlers in the IPL and how they manage to shrug it off or deal with it?
Well, I think it's more around the batsman's philosophy around it, and maybe Stoinis just held off because he wanted to get to that Mavi over because he felt like he could get hold of him with that small boundary. So it hurts as a bowler if that happens a couple of times, and it is a talking point like it is for us at the moment. But I think he has the ability, he has the skill set to actually improve and make this a thing of the past.
Okay, chase is underway. Still a few things that we'd love to discuss. We'll save it for the post show because Tim Southee's had a fine spell of 4 overs. Russell's had an impact with ball 2. Let's see on what side of the result KKR eventually end up, and we could look back perhaps at these tactical calls by Shreyas Iyer. Prediction though, 177 is one of those scores you're not quite sure, and Bish has already pointed out how often teams batting first at this ground win. What do you think?
I would think KKR have the advantage, but the mitigating factor is how good the Lucknow bowling attack is. I think they've proven themselves in pretty much every game they've played, and the addition of Mohsin Khan and Avish Khan in this team suggests that they have the firepower to restrict them, but let's see.
All right, Bish, prediction, batting first?
I'm going to ensure that KKR win by saying that I think Lucknow will win this game. The opposite will absolutely happen. I'm going Lucknow Super Giants.
That's awesome. If every one of my panelists starts saying that everything I say is wrong and the opposite happens, then who actually calls these things right? I don't get it. Anyway, everyone does.
You.
Yeah, nonsense.
Yeah, it's all you, Raunak.
Yeah, let's stop it, both of you. Come on. Anyway, all right. We leave it there. We pick up the chat with Ian Bishop and Daniel Vettori on Maruti Suzuki Presents ESPN Cricinfo T20 timeout powered by Eco 95G at the end of the game, which is a massive 2 points KKR just simply cannot afford to drop.